Shalom lachem, achim v'achayot ikarim. We are continuing our daily teaching in the book of Revelation, chapter 17. We're going to start with verses 1 to 6, and we're going to go over them and read them, and then explain them. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and spoke with me, saying, "Come here, and I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, and with whom we'll see that the many waters, as we go on, are the nations, it's the world. On many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed acts of immorality, and those who dwell on the earth were made drunk with the wine of her immorality. And he carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, full of blasphemous names, having 7 heads and 7 horns. And the woman was clothed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a gold cup full of abominations and of the unclean things of her immorality. And on her forehead a name was written, A Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the witnesses of Yeshua. And when I saw her, I wondered greatly." So we read about this woman, that she is a prostitute. On her is written the name Babylon, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. And she is sitting on this animal, this beast, this kingdom of the Antichrist that we spoke about yesterday. We have descriptions here. So what does it say here about this woman? And why do I think it not only represents Babylon, but also the Catholic Church mostly, but actually all of the other religions? The religions, all of them began in Babylon. Let's look at Babylon itself. Who established Babylon? We find that in Genesis chapter 10, from verses 8 to 10, that Nimrod, the one who built his kingdom, he established his kingdom in Babylon. His name already gives us a clue about him. It means rebellion. And so in it we see this idea of rebellion. So in Genesis chapter 11, then we get to that rebellion of the city of Babel. They build a tower, its head is in the heaven, and we see that they wanted to conquer all of the land. Instead of being scattered, they gather together and they say, let's build a city. And they said, we're going to make our own name for ourselves. We're going to be in the center, not God. God said to be scattered. And we say, no, we're going to gather together in one place. We don't want God. We're at the center. And so we want to make a name for ourselves. That's humanism. And we're going to build a tower. Its top is in heaven. And we're going to go up to heaven. And we're going to reign over our city. Also explains in the past that the root of their fall of Satan, in the beginning of his way, he was an angel. And he he was filled with pride and wanted to take God's place in heaven. And he was thrown down below. And he became Satan. So we see that same desire to go up to heaven, a tower whose top is in heaven. And we spoke about this in the past, that what characterized them was they had one language. One language, a language is a communication means. They could speak one language, they could communicate, they could collect their power together, their efforts. And really it's a hint about the continuation. It's the same thing that characterizes us today. We are in a generation of humanism. We have a generation of knowledge. We have one communication system. It's called the internet. And it's full of rebellion against God. We've thrown God away. We don't believe in him. We don't want him. Actually, we've gone back to the days of Babylon in the concept of Babylon. Even if that particular city has already been destroyed and doesn't exist anymore. So the root of Babylon is rebellion against God. And from there grew out all the religions. And that's where it began. But the idol worship of all these nations, all these religions, is thought before God as prostitution. It's spiritual prostitution. We find that in Ezekiel chapter 8. God shows the prophet Ezekiel all this idol worship that was going on in the temple. And also in chapters 16 and 17, we see that God compares Judah and the kingdom of Israel, as two of them, they're two prostitute sisters, and they were both full of idol worship. And for that reason, the kingdom of Israel went out to exile, and also Judah went to exile, first to Assyria, the second to Babylon. But these are days of prostitution, spiritual prostitution. And so here we see this prostitute. She's very rich. She's wearing purple in verse 4, chapter 17 of Revelation. She was wearing purple and scarlet and clothed with gold and precious stones. So we see that the Catholic Church, for example, very rich with all of the world. It owns things. But I visited in the Vatican in the museum. I saw the riches that they had collected to themselves over the years as they took advantage of people who bought forgiveness through money. Also look at other religions, Buddhism, with their golden Buddhas, and so on. So the religions always knew how to take advantage of the people, the crowds. And on her forehead a name was written, a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots. It's a mother. And so she gives birth. All these nations, all these religions grew out of her, were born from her. And we see the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and the blood of the witnesses of Yeshua. When I saw her, I wondered greatly. Until today, believers are murdered by Muslims, by extreme Muslims, also by Buddhists are persecuting in India the believers, and also the Catholic Church through all the centuries is responsible for the murder of millions of people who really were the disciples of Yeshua, and they wanted to live according to what the New Testament says. But really, the Church, despite the fact that she claims to represent Yeshua in the New Testament, but really, she is drawn away from the path and all kinds of things, praying to Mary, praying to the saints, baptizing babies, the Pope and his status, and all kinds of things that the Catholic Church has added to what's written. And they don't at all, these are things that are completely opposite of what the New Testament says. And I don't want to continue going on this, but in the eyes of God, this is idol worship. And today, the current Pope, he really came out with a video that you can see it on YouTube, where he calls all the nations to join together, to unite together, whether it's Islam or Buddhism. Let's all unite together. We all believe in the same God. And it's not true. It's not right. It's not right because they don't worship the God, the one true God. And he's the one who prevents and forbids this. They are lying, and they are lying and claiming to represent God, but they don't really. And so we see that she is drunk with the blood of the saints. I'm going to continue to read now from verse 15. And he said to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. So as we look again at the Catholic Church, it is found in every place in the world. In every continent, there are representatives of her, the Church. And they're located in many places in their properties. And the 10 horns which you saw, and the beast, these will hate the harlot, and will make her desolate and naked, and they will eat her flesh and will burn her up with fire. You can see the Antichrist, he hates God. He hates Yeshua. And it wasn't anything that will remind him of Yeshua, or anything. Remember, as we saw, he's going to change appointed times, and seasons, and holidays. And we see that he'll represent himself as God. And it says that for that reason, they will hate the harlot. And they will make her naked and desolate and eat her flesh. A new religion, then, will come to destroy all that existed before, and especially everything that mentions God or Yeshua. So they will burn the church. They will burn these churches. They will rob them. And it says in verse 17, for God has put it in their hearts to execute his purpose, for having a common purpose, and by giving their kingdom to the beast, until the words of God will be fulfilled. So God will allow it. God judges this religious establishment that has murdered many, also prevented many from coming to God. You know, the church was opposed when they translated the scriptures. They didn't want to translate them to people's languages. In the Middle Ages, Luther went and translated it to German, the New Testament. and really all the whole Bible. And it opened the way for people to begin to read the Bible and the New Testament for themselves in medieval languages. And it's continuing till today, this work of translation. The church was against it, translation. They wanted to keep people in darkness. Only we know what it says, not you. You don't need to know what it says. It prevented people from coming to God. And God will judge them and all of those other religions. And it will do it. It will be allowed through the Antichrist to do this. We see again and again in the scriptures that God sometimes allows Satans to do things. Let's not get confused and think, no, Satan's doing this. Satan brought the corona. Satan does everything. No, Satan can't do anything unless God allows him. That's the way it was Job, when God allowed him to test him. Also in the times of David, when God allowed Satan to move David's heart to count the people. And God saw the idol worship that was among the people. He saw the pride that was in David's heart. And he allowed this fall, this local fall of David. And the result was the 70,000 people who were killed. And I don't know how many women on top of all that. Through this sickness that continued for 3 days. But really, God uses and he allows Satan to do things. And Satan also, despite the fact that he only wants to destroy and kill him, he's just waiting for him to have the opportunity. And he'll with joy, or actually more correctly, with hatred and anger, and he'll assault and jump at this chance to do this. But God will allow this judgment. And then it says, the woman you saw, this great city, is Babylon, the mother of the abominations of the earth. We see that Babylon, the mother of the prostitutes, and as I said, all the nations, all the religions began from there. As we read the continuation, then in Revelation chapter 18, we see that this Babylon will be repeated again. But my time is done for now. Dear brothers and sisters, may God bless you also today. Let's seek to serve and worship God with a full heart. Shalom.